good evening. This is Team Avengers. Just to give you a little overview of what the project that we're working on and our sponsors. We're working mainly for the Arcos, Chris Meadow and Dave Inlow. They're based in Sugar Land, Texas. And what we're trying to work out is making an app, mobile app, to help the anesthetics in veterinarians for when they perform the procedure. They want to record the number. They want to record the metrics and want to see the graphs essentially, and also capture a lot of data fields. So past week, what we have done is that we have collaborated among each other, and we also had a meeting with our sponsor about what are the next steps that we have to take, because we already had the first kickoff meeting for the project overview. Apart from that, we also focused on learning tools like Jenkins, the testing frameworks that we need, the React library itself, and also how the mobile platform itself works. We did all that, and we have already started working on the code itself and focusing on the test aspect of it. So without further ado, I would like to, well, before that actually, I would like to demonstrate. So that's just a high-level overview. The tool that we're using for collaboration is Discord, and what we have done is that we're making use of the channels feature that it provides, so that we can segregate it as per the content that's required.
And what's good about Discord is you can just hop into a voice chat right away if someone's online. You don't have to set up a call or anything like that. Like if you scroll down here, you can just hop into the voice channel and automatically talk to people in case someone's stuck on something or something like that.
Right. And
then for our actual team meetings, we use Google Hangouts so we can see each other via video. Discord has that, but it's not that good, so we should start on Google Hangouts.
So that's for the collaboration tool. For task lists, we've also formed a list that has a task assigned to each and every individual for that, and can give you a little bit of overview of what that is.
Rishi. So for the tasks list, each member was assigned a specific role, and for each for the first part of the iteration, most of us did the UI design of it, and for each feature, we're letting each developer take on a unique role, from writing test cases to the actual code and storing the data. So that's about it.
Yeah, it's because we want to get everyone to get a more holistic view of the entire development process. We didn't want to split someone off to just work on the realm part and someone to just work on how the UI is going to look. We want it all to be everyone to get pieces from each part. So for example, once we'll show you the demo of what we have done. Someone made the text field that says patient first name, and then someone else made the one that's talking about the procedure type and so on and so forth.
After that, we would like Anne to give us a UI prototype that we created. That actually she created, not we created. But go ahead.
So in the past iteration, we actually created a simple prototype for the first few pages of the app. And we actually use this to communicate with the client to make some early feedback from them. And this is the launch page of the app. From this, the user can create a new patient, or view the story, or do the setting for the app. For now, we just have create a new patient, and then that lead the user to the first initial patient form, where the user can quickly enter on the data of the patient before the surgery, like the first name, last name, and they have and we have a drop-down menu for other things like ASA, lateral, and so on. Yeah, and after the user finish this step, they can go to the next step, which is in the status tab. In this phase, the user can quickly enter all the information and the medical index of the patient during the surgery, like the historic blood pressure or heart rate and other things. They can also drop in some quick note if needed. And after each 10 minutes, the user can submit these data, and they can check the visual graph right here, which display on the data that they already enter in the second tab. Yeah. And also here they get to see all the note that is taken with the timestamp before each note. And this is just a first few page of the app that we did the prototype in the last iteration. There will be much more details, and we will add more flow for the view history and setting in the few next iteration. And after going over some looks of the components, and we noticed that there's a few components that repeat itself a lot in the app. So our team came up with an idea of creating a like reusable component, so we don't have to repeat every single line of code of each component. So we just create basically like a file. We store all the information of a component. We tested it and reuse it throughout the app. Yeah, and that's it for the prototype.
And just to add on a little bit on that, she came up with a prototype, and then we also presented it to Chris, our sponsor, and they really liked it, but they also gave a little bit of suggestion on how to actually really structure the first page. The first page right now, what you're seeing over here, is that we create a new project. We create a new patient or project. We create a new patient. We fill out the form. Every 10 minutes, we get a notification. They put in the information to see the visual. But what's after next? That was the question. So what that means? So once after that, the way it's going to work is once we got a little bit more clarification, the way it's going to work with is that they create a new patient. It's going to start a new session where they go in and then feed the data, and then go to the next page, see the status, and see the graphs. And eventually there's going to be a button on the bottom where they go in and click. That's going to end the session. Once it ends the session, this is where we take all that data and then put it in the database, which we haven't created yet. That's going to be in the next few iterations. So then when they come back, what they will be able to see is that they click on view history. It's going to show them all the previous patients that they have had. And at the same time, let's say if they create a new patient, and all of a sudden the battery goes down, something happens with the phone. When they come back to the app and open it up, this is going to show them that, hey, you have an existing patient in the system that you can start working on.
Yeah, and so basically then that means that whenever someone inputs one field, like the name, the second they go to the next one, we have to write to disk on the phone memory that we're restoring that. And for the database, it's all going to be stored on the phone. There's not going to be any remote storage. And then the user will have the option to export that data. What they want is a PDF, so they can just email it to the doctor or whoever needs it.
Yep. So that's that for the UF prototype, and I'll give
Okay. So
Robbie some time to
so now we're gonna pull up the demo of our app. So this is what we have done so far. We just have the new patient, but we have new patient and patient records. Patient records, we haven't done it all yet. It's just a blank button. But new patient, we have it open to where the user can input in all these fields. We have to click on the side to scroll. Yeah, it's different on my emulator. Okay. So
press it and then it's cool.
press. Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. So the user can input any data here. So you know how to have like Rami. None of your business for the patient wait. Yeah. And then you'd go in and fill all of this out. And so there's a lot of detail on what they want to be entered in for the patient form. So I believe we're at a point now where we can move on to in the next iteration, we're going to move on to the next page. because a lot of this detail doesn't affect what we're doing on the next page. And so we want to have all of our, the next page would be the actual surgery, where you update the status of the blood pressure, heart rate, and so on. And so we're going to be moving on to that for the next iteration, and then come back later and add up. There's like, I think 40 or 50 fields he wants for, you know, patient pre-info. And so that can be done in a later time, just so that we can move on to developing the other parts of that. And so these are the sliders that we made, which won't be on this page, they'll be on the next page, but we're just testing them to make sure. And the reason we chose sliders is because talking with Chris, you know, the focus is for the anesthesiologist to be working with speed. You know, they want to be able to input this as fast as possible just so they can go back to focusing on the patient. Because like now in the field, when they do this, they have to write down manually, and that takes forever. And even with them writing down manually, you know, doing shorthand notation, it'd be way faster for them to just quickly move on a slider on the phone and input that data.
Accessibility.
Yeah, very accessible. And so they'd be entering all of this. And let me go back. Okay, and so this is for the iOS version. Since we're using React Native, the Android version is also similar. Now I don't have it plugged in. We didn't set up the for me to screen share my Android to his Mac computer, but just to show like that I can pull up the app, and Venkat, this is an Android phone. So we also have it running on Android as well. A new patient, well, there we go. And then enter my phone's a little slow, but you can enter the information there, it's the same thing. And so we actually ran into an issue at the start with, because 4 of our developers were iOS, and when you are setting up the build in the environment, he was setting it up purely for iOS. So then when Donovan, Rishi, and I started to work on the code, we realized, wait a second, this emulator isn't even running. Like we can't even see, you know, output of what we're writing, like of the visual output at least. The tests were working fine, and so we had to go in and figure out how to set up the Android version of the build, which took a bit of time, but we got it down now for the future.
So what he just presented you on the phone, the idea is that it's not like a web where we can actually continuously deploy, but the method that we have in here is that we can actually continuously put it on our phone to actually get a visual constant feedback of how does it look like on the actual device itself. And
then another thing is, for me, my computer kind of sucks, so when I run the emulator, my machine crashes. So when I develop it, I have to plug in my phone and view it live as I change components. But I think everyone else has the emulator running. You 4 on iOS, emulating iOS, and then the other 2 on Android. All right, next.
All right, so that's the demo, and we can give you a quick overview over the continuous integration part of it as well. So as you can see that you've been heavily committing code on Jenkins.
Give it a second. Yeah, I saw Venkat. Sorry, sometimes the
server
is very slow on Jenkins, but I think we have about like 72 things we've already pushed to the repository. And then I know you said that, you know, if we have a build that's failed, to revert, and so we do that. But sometimes, you know, someone will push something to the repository and then, you know, leave their computer and go on and do something else. So we can't address it right away. And so we just, like, if you look at the time here, 5:05 p.m. just before the presentation, our build was not working. So we had to go and revert it to an older version while some of the groups were presenting, just to make sure that we had our latest version on it that was something that was working. And so if you go on, click on here, you are.
I already clicked on there.
Oh, you did? Okay, and so we'll see the output of our tests using the Jest library. And so one thing to say, our code coverage is not at 100%, and I know that, you know, you push for having it 100% and to remove the code that's not tested, but right now we just had issues with some of our developers not writing tests first, and so we're trying to get everyone on the same page to write tests first, then the code, so that our coverage is at 100%. And you just leave this, we can go show just run npm run test, and then it'll show our test output. Do with the watch thing, yeah. Okay. And so this is going to run our test suite.
So it's also going to collect the coverage.
Give it a second.
So my computer is faster than
All right, and so as you can see, we have in the slider input, we didn't finish writing. We should have wrote the test first, but we didn't. 29 lines, and then in the patient data form, this is because we have lines uncommented. There's a bunch of lines uncommented that we didn't remove because we're going back. We have to make some changes, but Other than, of everything that is uncommented, we have 96%.
Yeah.
And all of our test cases are passing.
So you can go to the build server itself and then console output.
And you'd basically see the same output
Grab a cup
there,
of
but it would just
coffee.
be plain, yeah, have a cup of coffee while you wait.
You can grab that while you come back, and
It'll be the same
if it's still
output as
loading,
the
then you can
terminal.
go back and add some sugar maybe. Then
I don't think we need to show.
hopefully-
It's gonna be the same as what we just saw in the terminal. It's just gonna be, instead of colored and everything, it's plain text. Yeah, see, there.
But
Yeah,
there
the
it is.
same output, yeah, the same exact output. Alright, I'll go back to the.
So that's that for testing. And
Okay, so.
so, but before we go to the next iteration, I want to just go over how we have the code structure. We have got our app folder, so we have two folders in here, iOS and Android. These are mainly for
Creating the build.
creating the builds essentially. App is where we actually go in and put all our code. We have the Redux setup, we have the pages setup. These reflect the initial data form, the status page, and the graph page. We also have the language setup, so they can we can actually demonstrate that.
Oh, yeah,
So right from the beginning, we focus on making sure that it's easier for us to internationalize it. So if, for example, right now it's in English, I can just go back in and change the code over here in the config, not in config, in utils, language, change it to Spanish, and then voila.
Yeah, no, it's-
There you go. So you have everything in Spanish. Not a whole lot of thing because we just made it to a point where we can actually test it and say that this setup works so that we can extend it to other parts of the app. It's just that we have that set up initially.
Yeah, and so we'd have this option to change language in the settings part of the app, which we haven't even begun developing that portion yet. But just for, you know.
Yeah,
just to
right
say-
now, because I have to do it in the code, but otherwise you have to go back to the phone setting and then change it to Spanish and then do it. And in this folder, config language is where we put all our translations. And that's how it picks up. So that's that for code demo, CI/CD. Next, he's gonna brief you over about our next iteration.
All right, so, right, we were still in the process of finishing adding up the fields. Like I said before, we're not done yet. You know, like I said, there's 40 more or something. No, 40 total. We have like 15-ish, I think, done. And so we're still in the process of that. I think that's put, you know, out of it's low priority on the backlog for now. So now we're gonna be shifting to working on the procedure page in this next iteration, since we already have the vital patient information. And so that's where you're gonna have those sliders that update. And we're also gonna need to work on the actual storage of the data through Realm. Because if you go back to the app, you know, I type something in here, like ramen, and then I go to launch, and I go back and come back in, and nothing is saved. It's just, you know, just a visual for now. So that's what we're gonna be working on the next iteration. And we also need to you create that page too for procedure page. We didn't even create like the template for it yet. And then we also need to create the page for the graph. But that's not. I don't think we'll get to that this next iteration. Maybe if we get the procedure page done fully, because we're gonna have to go and learn Realm, which is new to all of us. Like this past iteration, we all learned React Native. Now we're gonna go into doing Realms for the storage of the data. And we're also gonna need the page for the patient records, which will also be in a future iteration. And then, like I said, the most important thing for this next iteration is actually storing the data that we are capturing and making sure there's no errors on that end. And I think there might be some things we need to look at for cross-compatibility, cross-platform. It's gonna be different for iOS and Android for the storage. We're just gonna have to look into that and research it. And so that is the end.